Salutations, people who watch things on the internet. It's Tuesday morning. We're stuck in traffic, like always, but it's a great time to shoot our Doctor Who review for Season 6, Episode 9. Jeez, this season's almost over. There's like 4 more episodes after this. It makes me a little sad. Of Night Terrors. Night Terrors. Glad BBC America this time decided not to take the holiday weekend off like they did with Memorial Day. This weekend was Labor Day if you're not from the U.S., where we celebrate people who work hard and people who are in labor unions. I've never been in a union, ever. But if I take anything from the movie Newsies, we're a union just by saying so. I spit right there at you in the audience. I didn't actually get around to watching this episode until last night, pretty late, and so I had seen a couple comments on Twitter, no spoilers, so it was nice, and I already knew that this episode was, actually had flip-flopped with, I think it was episode 3 or 4, The Doctor's Wife. That was the Neil Gaiman episode. So this episode, Night Terrors, was supposed to be the first half of the season, and they plopped it down in the second half of the season. Oh yeah, don't forget to go subscribe. Last week's Doctor Who reviews over there, and we'll throw something else over there. It's a surprise. You have to go click it. I'm going to write the word surprise. So Night Terrors very much obviously was going to be a standalone episode. Very, very self-contained. I didn't expect it going in to have more of the continuing storyline, because Let's Kill Hitler was just such like a bomb of things that make your mind hurt. I wish in some, this is me being greedy, there was some follow-through. It felt almost like the pirate episode from earlier this season, where I was like, that had nothing to do with anything that just happened. So there was some of that going on, and everyone was like, I really don't like this. Everyone's been like, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. And I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think it was great by any means, but I also don't think it was all that bad. Plot-wise, it took a while. It was very out of place, in the sense that I didn't feel like there was so much of a sense of urgency to what was going on, and it was more just a lot of random questions and weird things going on. I guess that's been happening a lot this season, so maybe I shouldn't complain. So, spoilers, little ones, not even, it doesn't matter. We hear they're in the TARDIS, and the little boy shouting, someone come please save me, come take me away, somehow reaches the TARDIS, and the Doctor picks up on it like an SOS message, and ends up in this giant, I love that location, the giant apartment complex with the tons of rows, and what it did just visually to portray this large thing. And I don't know if it was real or not. Someone who maybe lives in the UK can tell me if you have ginormous structures like that. So it painted all these fun levels. Maybe they could have done something with that more, but it was all focused on George as the little boy and his monsters in the closet and his seemingly stupid dad. And the Doctor's here to figure out what's going on. And we see the Doctor take that reading of the closet and is like off the scales, and is very concerned about this whole what's in the closet thing. But then ultimately, 3 frames later, not actually 3 frames later, decides let's just open it anyways. And like everyone else, through various things that George was afraid of, got sucked into the dollhouse inside, which doesn't make a lot of sense, that the other noises and things that were scary sucked them into the dollhouse. And so that's where we ultimately find our crew, Amy, Rory, the Doctor, George's dad, in this dollhouse, and they're being chased around by the monsters, which turn out to be dolls, who somehow derive a power of being able to change other people into dolls once they touch them, which is never really explained at all. Nope, just there because, and whatever the aliens were named, it could have been a lot better of a psychological thriller, in the sense that he just adapts, but then was very fearful that you know, his dad and his mom didn't want to keep him, and so that transpired into these really interesting fears that came to life with inside the closet. You know, when I break it down like this, it sounds like I really didn't enjoy it at all, but I was at least along for the ride. It had me captivated. At one point, I looked up at the time remaining since I watched it on iTunes, and it was like 9 minutes. I was like, how are they going to wrap this up? It's like 9 minutes left. And like nothing had been, we hadn't figured anything out. And then, you know, I don't even remember how the doctor magically figured out, he was the picture, the thing that was right in front of his face. But it still didn't tell me how he figured out that the kid was that certain type of alien. Didn't make a lot of sense either. So, you know, Doctor goes in and then eventually realizes that it's George is the only one who can save him because he's the one imagining the monsters in the first place, and so George is inside. But then really it's all about just him being loved and feeling accepted, which his dad then has to run down the stairs and go and show him affection. Yeah. Interesting, huh? Interesting. And then there's this little bit of resolution. Oh, Amy and... I did enjoy the line where after Rory and Amy get sucked down the elevator, or the lift, as you see. And did you notice? I've been to London and Europe in general, and we in America are spoiled by giant elevators, and we're like, I don't even want to stand next to someone if I don't have to. European elevators, lifts, are like shoe boxes, and you're always standing next to someone. So remember that next time you're inside of a nice big elevator. You're like, I don't want to stand next to this guy. Go to Europe. Yeah, so I was like, there's 9 minutes left. How are we going to wrap this up? And then magically the doctor realizes that George just wanted to be loved and accepted, and that was the solution. And then everyone gets spit back out, and the old ladies, whatever. The weird tension between the landlord and the father asking for the rent, but then he was just like, oh, I'm being mean, but then I'm being nice, and then I'm being mean, but then I'm kind of serious, and I'm passive-aggressive. And then he gets sucked in, and nothing happened to him inside other than he got chased by the dolls. So, like, there would have been some cool conflict, or at least some team-building exercises if George's dad and the landlord then had to make amends inside the dollhouse to fight off the dolls, and then once they got spit out, they were good friends again. And Mom just disappears for the whole damn episode. She, like, goes off, had supposedly phoned home to tell George's dad that someone from social service was coming, which was a nice cover for the doctor. But then shows up the next morning, nothing, just coming home from work, wherever she works, and everything's cool. And apparently Dad doesn't have a job, but that's not really explained. But, you know, he should have been at home all the time with his kid then, so then there should have been probably a bit of connectedness, because they didn't really establish the fact that his dad was disconnected from George in the first place. You know, they showed like some concern. I'm really ripping this apart, aren't I? I mean, it's Tuesday morning. I don't want to go back to work, so I'm being mean to Doctor Who, which is bad because I really like Doctor Who. So that's about it. No River, no TARDIS. There's maybe a little bit about the silence, perhaps, that I thought for one moment that it could have been the silence influencing George, and then not really. The one thing, speculative thing, that I took away from this all was the idea of perception filters. This could be my aha moment. And there's been a lot of use of perception filters over the last 2 seasons. Remember with the flatmate thing and the giant second story of a house that wasn't actually there. And then the perception filter of the additional room inside of Amy's house when she was little, and then when she was hot cop Amy. So it makes me wonder if there's a very large perception filter going on here in terms of tricking Amy, Doctor, and Rory into thinking other things are going on, which could play into a larger, haha, fooled you, nothing really bad happened because it was all a giant perception filter. So I doubt that's going to happen, but they're taking quite a liberty with this idea of perception filter and who it cannot affect. Because George's dad, they never had a baby. She was drinking in December. You don't drink while you're pregnant. That's a lesson. I learned that on some TV show. Not because I ever had a baby or been in. Anyways. So overall, I thought it was good. It was kind of fun. Wasn't great. I didn't hate it like some other people, and people were thinking it was weird. I think the trailer for this episode was misleading in the sense that it was going to be more about monsters and him actually having to fight the monsters, and nothing ever happened with the dolls other than Amy got turned into one, and then the doctor looked kind of sad that she was, but then didn't ultimately care or was not relieved entirely once she wasn't, and Rory kind of, that didn't, there was no sense of impending doom-ish, and then other than that giant pair of scissors, so props to the art department on that one. Rory just had a broom. Though I did like the lens flare thing. If you notice, Rory's little torch, flashlight for us Americans, was pointed at the camera a lot, and there was like 2 vertical blue lines. That was very J.J. Abrams. Well, not so much J.J. Abrams. J.J. Moore has a circular lens flares, and this was just like straight out, like blue, TARDIS blue from the torch. Oh, and they never explained, well, they kind of explained why lights kept flashing on and off, that it was just part of Georgie's regiment, which just made him seem autistic at that point. And he's flipping light switches on. He's like, no, it's got to be 5 times. And I was like, what, is this Rain Man? Nothing, not that I have anything wrong with autistic people, but it was an interesting, like, he has to have these ticks, and then they show up inside, and it doesn't really mean anything other than things from the outside are coming to the inside. I first had thought when Rory's torch was going on and off, that it was going to be the doctor sending Morse code, and they flashed back to that shot of someone flipping the light switch on and off, so I thought someone was trying to communicate inside of the dollhouse with them, but that would have been clever, but no, it was just reminding the idiot people that someone had flipped the light switch on 5 times. So, I'm excited for next week's episode. It seems like, I looked up 5 minutes ago what it was called, but I've been talking to you, and like I always do, I forget. It has something to do with Amy. She gets kidnapped, and they have to go save her from these giant robots that look very much like the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which starred Martin Freeman, who was in The Office, the British version, which is also a BBC show. Look, I connected those. So it could be interesting, or it could be a very standalone-ish episode. We'll have to see. I really think this season is going to be odd until we get to episodes 12 and 13, the 2 finale episodes. And 13 is written by Moffat, and 12 is not. So that's also interesting. I thought they'd go out with a giant bang, and both of them would be written by Moffat, because I think they're 2-parter at the end. So we have a bit of ground to cover before we get back to whatever 1910 or 2010 at Lake Silencio, which I did correctly guess was going to be something having to do with it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So what were your guys' thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed, please go subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Andrew Seeley, and we'll talk some more about so don't I like conversing with you guys on Twitter, but leave some comments in the comment section, and that gets a discussion going. And then like or dislike. If you hate it, hate me. I love those hater comments. Bring them on. And if you love it, love my Doctor Who reviews, leave me a great comment and give me a good old thumbs up. And we'll see you guys next week for next week's review of Doctor Who. Adios.